Welcome to the Bakersfield City Council meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 10 a.m., and the following Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, the Honorable Mayor Karen K. Go.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to call to order the 5:15 regular City Council meeting of September 10th, 2025. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go.
Here.
Vice Mayor Core.
Here.
Councilmember Arias.
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Weir. Councilmember Smith.
I'm here.
Councilmember Coman.
Here.
Councilmember Bashir Tash. Councilmember Bashir Tash has notified us he is absent due to illness.
Thank you, and welcome to all of you. We appreciate having you participate in the civic process. Tonight, we have the pleasure of having Pastor Mike Ostheimer from Calvary Chapel, who will offer the invocation. Thank you so much for your church's involvement in our community. I know with Recovery 180, working together with those who are struggling with addiction, you've made a major inroads there, and thank you for your support. And then thank you also for hosting the prayer booth at the Kern County Fair. Following the invocation, Claire Michael, who's a senior at Bakersfield High School, will lead us in the pledge. Claire is one of my appointees to the Youth Commission, and excited to have her. She has a 4.2 GPA. She's ASB Commissioner of Community Service and a part of the National Honor Society, the Drama Club, Chamber Choir, and the Chorale. So at this time, would you all please stand?
I'd just like to thank Mayor Go and the City Council. It's always a privilege and an honor. It's humbling to be able to be here in person. But I just want you to know, as a church, as many do in this city, that you'd know that you have many that pray for you every single week. And we were honored to be able to do that in person tonight. I'm always reminded of 1 Timothy 2, because it tells us this for all of us that are not just for those in ministry, but also for the city as well. It says, pray this way for kings and all who are in authority, so that we can live a peaceful and quiet lives that are marked by godliness and dignity. And we pray that often for you, and just really appreciate your service to our community. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, come to you in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, and I ask you to bless these proceedings tonight. Every item, Lord, on the agenda, big or small, it's essential to you, and I thank you first and foremost for, again, our Mayor, Mayor Go, and for each member of our City Council who seeks to carry out the duties of their office, and they do it faithfully, and thank you for them. As we begin this council meeting tonight, Lord, we're reminded from your word that promotion doesn't come from the east or from the west, but it comes from you, oh Lord. Like Esther in the book that bears her name, each of these elected officials, along with their staff, have been appointed by you for such a time as this. It's not by accident, but by your design that these officials hold the offices that they do today. And with that in mind, may each of them sense their privilege and the responsibility in leading our great city. May you give them wisdom from heaven with regard to the decisions that they must make, first for your glory and for the good of our people. We recognize that the world we live in today is becoming increasingly divided, and the temptation to compromise truth for the sake of unity has never been greater. And so I ask that you give our city leaders the courage and the conviction to stay the course as they work together to honor you and to bless our city's residents through the thoughtful decisions they'll make. I pray also a hedge of protection around them and their families as they go about their ways. And lastly, may you bless the city of Bakersfield and our city's leaders and their families, and make these meetings a joy-filled experience for each of them, for their sacrifices as they listen and they govern our city with righteous judgment. And I ask all these things tonight for your glory and for the good of all the citizens of Bakersfield. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Claire.
Thank you so much for having me. Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and you may be seated. And Pastor and Claire, I know that you have other responsibilities, so you're welcome to stay or leave. Here are a few guidelines to help our meeting run smoothly. We request that you turn off your phones. Please be courteous in the use of cameras and videos for safety reasons, and as a courtesy to others, no signs are allowed in the council chamber or in the lobby. Applause is allowed during the presentations portion of the meeting, but not during other portions of the meeting. Everyone in attendance is expected to adhere to the rules of decorum established by resolution of the City Council. Failure to abide by the city's rules of decorum, including any disruptive behavior that interferes with our ability to have an orderly and efficient meeting, prevents the City Council from conducting the business of the city. Consider this a first warning to everyone in attendance that conduct that disrupts the meeting may result in expulsion and or the chambers being cleared. Behavior that disrupts the meeting includes repetitive statements, shouting, hate speech, interrupting staff or presenters during the meeting, speaking out of turn, and outbursts from the audience. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Presentations, item 4A, presentation to Jeremy T. Tobias, Kelly Lowry, CAPK's Food Bank Administrator and Chair of the Kern County Food Policy Council, Maritza Jimenez, CAPK Board Member, and Johnny Delgado, Member of the Kern County Food Policy Council, declaring September 2025 as Hunger Action Month in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Hunger and food insecurity affects thousands of children, families, seniors, and individuals in Kern County. Creates barriers to health, stability, and opportunity. But we are so blessed to have Community Action Partnership in this community who feed thousands and thousands and thousands. You're going to hear a lot from them. And we together want to join this night to say that we recognize that healthy food and sustainable food has become an urgent issue in our community, and now is the time to act. Gives me pleasure to read this proclamation. Whereas Community Action Partnership of Kern Food Bank is the largest hunger relief organization in Kern County, distributing more than 22.5 million pounds of food in the past year, the equivalent of 18,750,000 meals to families in need through its network of community partners, mobile distributions, and choice pantries. And whereas during Hunger Action Month, CAPK Food Bank joins Feeding America and food banks across the country to raise awareness about hunger, inspire advocacy, and encourage community engagement to end food insecurity. Whereas in 2025, the Kern County Food Policy Council relaunched to strengthen collaborative efforts between public agencies, nonprofit organizations, businesses, community members, building long-term strategies to improve food access, nutrition, and stability across the county. And now, therefore, I, Karen Go, Mayor of the City of Bakersfield, do hereby proclaim September 2025 as Hunger Action Month in our city and call upon our citizens to join in the fight against hunger by supporting local hunger relief efforts, advocating for stronger food systems, and taking meaningful action to ensure every neighbor has access to healthy and nutritious food. It's my honor to be able to present this on behalf of our City Council to Jeremy Tobias. Thank you so much for all that you have done for our community. And I guess it's not going to be Jeremy. I'm looking around. Pritika, come on up here. We really appreciate it. That's why you kept pointing to yourself. I was trying to figure out what it was about. But thank you for all of your efforts, and it's my honor to be able to present that to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to the council and staff for allowing us to participate in this proclamation. We've made it a point to really celebrate the food bank for the last couple of years, and all of you have been so instrumental in supporting our agency, especially the food bank. So I just wanted to say thank you. I'm joined by a couple of partners and colleagues that have a few words to say, so I'm going to hand it over to them.
Hi, good evening. I'm Savannah Oates, PR and Advocacy Manager for CAPK. I just want to reiterate what Pritika said. We are here with a lot of our partners. Today is Hunger Action Day. We were at the corner of 22nd and Owl, so we're a little sunburnt. Some of us are in different clothes than we usually would be. But we're thankful for the collaboration. There is still a lot of events for the community to get involved with. We are going to have a community box building day on September 20th at the food bank from 7:45 to 11 a.m. We're encouraging the community to come out, help us build senior food boxes for all of our seniors in Kern County. And then also with the Kern County Fair, we'll be at the gates on September 23rd from 4 p.m. on to collect cans. All 6 cans get you in for free. So we have a ton going on. If you're interested in any of these activities or any other further activities in the future, you can visit capkfoundation.org/ham. We didn't do that on purpose. It's for Hunger Action Month. But I'd like to pass it over to the Kern County Food Policy Council to reiterate the partnership we have relaunched.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is John Delgado. I'm the member of the Kern County Food Policy Council and serve as the Grants Program Director with Bakersfield American Indian Health Project. As we observe Hunger Action Month, I do want to state that although Kern County is one of the largest exporters of food, and CAPK does an amazing job at distributing millions of pounds of food a year to the community, Kern County as a whole experiences food insecurity at about 150% higher than state and national averages. I believe it's vital to recognize that food insecurity does not affect all communities equally. Indigenous populations, including Native American communities in and around Bakersfield, often experience disproportionately higher rates for food insecurity, rooted in a long history of systemic inequities. These include land disposition, limited access to traditional foods, and underinvestment in infrastructure and geographic isolation. Addressing Indigenous food insecurity requires more than food distribution. It calls for culturally informed, community-led solutions that honor traditional foodways, promote food sovereignty, and acknowledge the historical injustice that continues to impact communities today. As we move forward to building more equitable and inclusive food systems, we must ensure that no community is overlooked, especially those that have been historically marginalized. Thank you.
And lastly, we would like to add, if there's any community members or constituents you have in your guys' area, they can call 211 to find the closest food distribution located to them. Thank you.
We're coming over.
Go ahead. Go ahead. All right. And 3, 2, 1. 3, 1. 3, 2, 1. All right. Thank you.
Give it up for CAPK. And thank you to Councilmember Eric Arias for being a member of the Food Policy Council. Next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Presentations item 4B, proclamation to KC the Bull and Kern County Fair Chief Executive Officer Michael Olcott, declaring September 17th, 2025 through September 28th, 2025 as Kern County Fair Days in Bakersfield.
Is there a Casey anywhere in the house? I think maybe Casey. All right, come on down. Come on down here. We're going to do it down here. Then you can dance after I give this to you. Mike Olcott is not able to be here, but Chelsea's going to be here, and then Casey the Bull. It's that time to celebrate and to eat super unhealthy food and lots of fried whatever you can imagine. It's my honor to issue this proclamation. The mayor of the city of Bakersfield, California, has officially proclaimed September 17th through September 28th, 2025 as Kern County Fair Days in our city. In honor of the annual Great Kern County Fair, in recognition of the visitors who will pass through the gates of the fairgrounds to celebrate the wonderful bounty of Kern County, in recognition of the visitors who will also enjoy the talents of our residents during this autumn institution, in recognition of the opportunities this event offers families to spend time together, in recognition of the continued support and outstanding efforts of local businesses in our community, and in honor of the Great Kern County Fair, where residents can treat themselves to fun-filled time to create memorable moments. And it's my honor to be able to present this to you. Chelsea, come on up. I don't know. Do you want him to have it? I don't know that he has hands. Thank you so much. And you may offer comments, and then we'll take a photo.
Thank you so much. We are so excited to be here to accept the proclamation for Kern County Fair Days. We are excited to have another 12 days of a great event in our community. We are looking forward to having 12 nights of free concerts at the Budweiser Pavilion with a great lineup. We have tons of great promotions going on. We have tickets on sale starting today at all Sully's locations at a discount. And we have our Feed the Need Day, where we take in the free 6 cans for free admission into the fair on Tuesday, September 23rd. We have a huge livestock show celebrating all of the livestock in our community. We have the largest livestock show in California, and so that's something we're extremely proud of. We have our competitive exhibits with over 7,000 entries this year, where our community can really show off all of the skills and hard work that they have, and we're super excited to have everyone.
Thank you. Give it up for Kern County Fair.
We're going to take a picture over here.
All right, we'll do a couple of them here. 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, and 3, 2, 1. All right.
Thank you so much. All right, I need it. All right, close it out. He's making it out the door. In keeping with Council's resolution, public statements are received at different times. Depending on the item, I will call on the city clerk to call for public statements. If you wish to make a public statement, please fill out a public speaker card and place it in the tray next to the speaker podium. We ask that you mark whether you're here to speak on an item listed on today's agenda or in a matter not on the agenda. Speakers who do not identify a specific agenda item will be presumed speakers for the non-agenda public statements. If you're here to speak on an item not on the meeting agenda, you'll be called first to speak. Statements are given a 2-minute time limit per speaker, 20 minutes total for all non-agenda item public statements. If you're here to speak on an item listed on the agenda, I'll call for you at the appropriate time. If public statements become disruptive and I have to clear the chambers to regain order of the meeting, you'll be called in one at a time to provide your public statement when your item is called. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers regarding items not listed on the agenda?
Margo, we have received 2 speaker cards for items not on the agenda. The first speaker is Sharon Brielle.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
I'm here tonight. I'm Sharon Brielle, and I'm a 24-year resident of Bakersfield, and I live in Mr. Coleman's ward. I'm here to give great appreciation to Councilwoman Carr for her initiative to reach out to Phoenix and conduct a Zoom meeting to discuss how they expanded their urban forest. The need to protect our citizens from heat, but via having more shade trees is so vital. And I want to say how deeply thankful I am for her initiative to make this possible. However, I have to throw a little shade. While our Parks Department did attend the meeting, they didn't ask any questions and they didn't show their face. So I felt very disappointed that we didn't have our own department engaged in this important discussion. So thank you, Councilwoman Carr, and for the purposes of understanding why this is important, Mr. Coleman, I counted 15 trees that have died on Scarlet Oak Drive, and they haven't been replaced. And I'm hoping to see that you'll be helping us with that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Briel. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Stephanie Sanchez.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Stephanie Sanchez. I've worked for the city of Bakersfield for 25 years. I'm a proud member of the SEIU 521. My coworkers and I are here today because too many dedicated city employees, the people who keep our communities safe, clean, and running, are leaving for better pay and better opportunities everywhere else. As an accountant in the Development Services Department, I have seen firsthand how the city saves money and increases efficiency. By bringing together the Building, Planning, Code Enforcement, and Public Works Subdivisions Department into a one-stop shop, as requested by City Council, we're going to streamline services for both residents and businesses. When it came time to prepare for this merger, staff did the groundwork ourselves. We managed office moves and built our own work spaces to keep construction on schedule. That's real savings for taxpayers. Despite our dedication and results, the city struggles to retain staff. Workers continue to leave for more life balance or higher paying jobs at the county or in the private sector. Bakersfield has become a training ground. People come here, gain experience, and then leave. This is not ideal and this is not sustainable. The city's budget is strong. We need real solutions and we need them now. I stand with my union to ask for a fair contract, one that prevents burnout, attracts and retains skilled workers, and keeps Bakersfield strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. We'll now move to the public statements listed on the agenda. If you're here to speak on items listed under consent calendar item 7, your time to speak is now. Again, each speaker is given a 2-minute time limit and each agenda item is limited to 20 minutes total. The consent calendar as a whole constitutes one agenda item. If you're here to speak on public hearing items 9A through B, now is not the time to speak. You'll be given an opportunity to speak when those items are called later in the meeting. I'm just going to give a minute for our guests to exit so we can all hear. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers regarding items listed under consent calendar item 7?
Mayor Go, we have not received any public speaker cards for items under consent item 7.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Consent calendar items 7A through 7I. A staff memorandum has been submitted for item 7E2 for a typographical error.
Thank you. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Mayor, tonight I'll be recusing myself from item 7I2 out of an abundance of caution. I want to avoid a perception of a conflict of interest. The executive director of Be Finally Free also serves on the board of directors for my employer, Stewards, and so I'll be recusing myself from 7I2.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Motion to approve the consent calendar agenda with the exception not with the exception.
Not with the exception.
Just motion to approve our consent calendar.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes. And we know that Councilmember Gonzalez has recused himself from that item that he announced.
The motion is approved with Council Members Weir and Bashir Tash absent and Councilmember Gonzalez abstaining from item 7I2.
Thank you. Our next item is public hearings. Each side will be allowed 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes for all speakers per side, so it's important that you identify yourself, make your statement succinctly so others may speak. We'll hear statements from those opposed to staff's recommendation first, then we'll hear from those who'd like to speak in favor of staff's recommendation. If there's testimony on both sides, each side will be allowed a 5-minute rebuttal. There's a clock on the TV screens behind me which indicates 15 minutes. Please step to the microphone, identify yourself. After 14 minutes, a yellow light will come on. At the end of 15 minutes, a red light will flash indicating your time is up. Please quickly end your statement. You may ask questions during your statement, but they won't be addressed until the public hearing is closed. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, give them to the clerk. She'll provide copies to the council. Please be courteous to others who wish to speak. Madam Clerk, please read the first public hearing item.
Item 9A, public appeal hearing of Planning Commission's approval of vesting tentative tract map 7450 and its proposed mitigated negative declaration, McIntosh and Associates representing Opal Land Company Co-Ownership Interests, LLC, and BGM LLC, and 7G's Investment Group, LLC, is proposing vesting tentative tract map 7450 to subdivide approximately 32.66 acres into a 176 single-family residential lot and 5 public landscape lots in the R2 zone located at the southwest corner of Olive Drive and Rosedale Ranch Parkway. Consideration of a resolution adopting a mitigated negative declaration pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act and approving vesting tentative tract map number 7450. Gordon Knipp, representing the Sierra Club, submitted an appeal to the Planning Commission's approval of the request. A staff memorandum has been submitted with additional correspondence.
Thank you. Mr. Clegg.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Our Development Services Director, Phil Burns, will provide a summary for this item.
Mr. Burns.
The presentation, please. I'll briefly go over the project and then why we're here. Why we're here is track 7450, which is the southwest corner of Olive Drive and Rosedale Ranch Parkway. This property is zoned R2, and the land use designation is low density residential. The proposed vesting tract 7450, shown here, is consistent with both the zoning and the land use for the proposed project. The project went in front of the Planning Commission back in January 16, 2024. The commission referred it back to staff to respond to Sierra Club's comments and comments from a base resident. Project was re-advertised for a future Planning Commission hearing, which happened on July 17th. Planning Commission approved vesting tentative tract 7450 unanimously with Commissioner Martin and Neil absent. Eddie Lane was representing the Sierra Club, did speak in opposition at the hearing. For the city clerk, the project was appealed by Gordon Knipp, representing the Sierra Club. The main issues were cumulative air quality and climate mitigation measures, lack of appropriate mitigation measures, and habitat loss impacts. The applicant provided an air quality impact provided by their qualified consultant in accordance with San Joaquin Valley Pollution Control Guidelines and methodologies. The analysis supports a determination that the measures applied to the project are and provide consistent when implementing their rules and regulations. Both CEQA guidelines and relevant case law do not require specific thresholds for estimating project contribution and cumulative climate change impacts, but do support an assessment of the project consistency with regional and statewide programs for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The project meets the best performance standards to reduce greenhouse gas by 29% per AB 32, along with Title 24 energy efficiency programs and green building code requirements. There is substantial evidence to support that the project contribution to cumulative greenhouse gas impact would not cumulatively be considerable. the deferral of species-specific protocols and surveys mitigation measures. The reality that there was a biological resources study prepared by Pruitt Biological Resources, provide information, analysis, and responding to biological resource-related questions and contained in the initial study. The mitigation measures have been included to reduce the levels of impacts less than significant. There's a concern that this violates CEQA. CEQA doesn't require perfection, but instead adequacy, completeness, and a good faith effort to full disclosure. CEQA allows for differences of opinions, which, and in this case, that's just kind of where we are. The proposed mitigated negative declaration is supported by project-specific analysis and qualified air quality and biological resource consultants, and supplemented in further analysis based on the applicants of certain CEQA sections and case law. The applicant also provided additional response letters from their air quality and biological consultants, which are also in the record. With that, the staff's recommended denial of the appeal. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Mr. Clegg, do you have anything further to add?
Thank you, Mayor. I do not.
Thank you. So at this time, public hearing item 9A is open. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? Please come to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed.
Hello.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Babak Nafisi. I'm an attorney, and I have and continue to work with Sierra Club on land use and environmental issues. And I'm going to be making the presentation on behalf of the Sierra Club this evening. I appreciate the opportunity and will try to keep it as brief as possible.
And before you begin, colleagues, if at any point you need a break, just let me know, okay? Because we all have to be here to listen to all of the public hearing. Go ahead.
So I want to begin by emphasizing the fact that in principle, in general, Sierra Club is not opposed to housing projects that provide housing, provided that the project is fully and thoughtfully evaluated as required by CEQA, that all potentially feasible alternatives and mitigation measures are considered and required. And in the case of a residential project like this one, that consistent with the goals and policies of both the state of California and the city's own housing element, that all effort is made to ensure that at least part of the new units are affordable. So I think staff did a good job of pointing out the issues that have brought us here tonight. The city, as far as I can see, and you'll see another project later on, there is this trend of approving residential projects and other projects that come below this 10-ton threshold that is set by the Air Board. And then considering, despite the fact that we all know that achieving the federal and state standards for air quality has been very challenging for this area, has been challenging for the city and its residents that continually pay the price for the quality of air here, that despite those concerns, the city continues to approve projects denying that they have any cumulative contribution to this pervasive problem because of this 10-ton threshold. And I think it's not fair to the residents, and it doesn't make sense from CEQA perspective, because clearly 167, 170 unit project will bring additional residents and they will generate more pollution, and it doesn't make sense not to require mitigation given how bad the air is. I want to point out, as we do in our letter, that the general plan admits that implementation of the housing goals will result in a significant air quality impact. Well, what does that mean? If there is no finding that it's not feasible to require quality mitigation, and you know from the analysis about the general plan that if you don't change your policy, you will continually make the air worse. And yet, we're here because staff has argued, and others have argued, that you should ignore that cumulative contribution to their quality impact. So I urge you to rethink that, because I think it's not fair to the residents. Climate change presents a similar challenge, but in sort of a more biblical quantity, because as you're aware, with fires raging not too far from here, that we're experiencing the effects of climate change now. This is not something that will happen in the future. It's happening right now. And yes, staff is correct that there's not a threshold adopted as to like when you consider a project's contribution significant. But this metric of consistency with existing plans is problematic for the city and frankly for other local agencies. So here the city doesn't have its own climate action plan, so it hasn't set out a set of rules that you can follow. And so there is the issue of, well, is this project consistent with the statewide plans? I probably don't need to tell you that California's statewide plans for reducing GHG emissions have taken a big blow because of the federal government's, frankly, hostility towards any measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. More to the point, a big part of California's ability, planning for achieving greenhouse gas reductions was dependent on California's ability to set emission standards for cars and trucks. So California's achievement of those targets depends on our ability as a state to, for example, require all car manufacturers who want to sell in California to produce only zero-emission cars by 2035. That was a cornerstone of our plan. Well, the EPA has revoked that waiver that allowed us to do that. California has sued, but the result is uncertain. This is just one example of programs and policies that the state had adopted that are in jeopardy because of what is happening in Washington. I know we can't really affect that directly, but we can't ignore these realities either. So if California is to achieve its emission reduction targets, its GHG targets, which is a requirement, which is a law here, if we can no longer depend on, for example, the emission reduction for cars, we have to achieve reductions elsewhere. Now, I understand that the city is not in a position to make policy for the state, but it's very disappointing and frankly against CEQA to see that these changes in the environment, in the context in which this project, you're considering this project, is not reflected in the analysis in the MND. So I urge you to not approve this project until staff is directed to really consider the issue that I'm raising. I'll speak briefly about the endangered species issues. Again, it's somewhat similar to the greenhouse gas emissions because there was a major change in the landscape of endangered species in the city when the Metropolitan Bakersfield HCP was allowed to expire, frankly, without achieving all the conservation targets that it identified, with like not having even spent all the money that was set aside from development fees to conserve habitat. So it didn't achieve its goals, and then it was deemed too expensive or too infeasible to implement. So it's not clear how these conservation objectives can be achieved on a big scale without that HCP. Well, we can't make you want to have an HCP, but I also want to stress that there is no mechanism right now to ensure that the cumulative impacts of habitat loss and frankly, loss of species individually is being addressed on a landscape scale. So I don't believe this MND can, there's evidence that there won't be a cumulative impact on species here. As you saw the picture of the lots in question, it looks like it's in agricultural production. And you may think that, well, agricultural production doesn't, is not habitat. That would be incorrect, because even if species can't burrow there and have dens, a lot of agricultural land in this area is foraging ground, and on the margins support various species. So I urge you to ask your staff to reconsider the project and its analysis based on these points. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nafisi. We have some other speakers who would like to speak in opposition. I've received some cards. Ms. Lauer, Ms. Briel, and Ms. Bell. Or you have, whoops, we had 4 minutes and just a little over 4 minutes.
I don't need that much time, but good afternoon, everyone. So I just want to appeal to your environmental conscience. So my name is Antje Lauer. I'm a representative of the Sierra Club. I'm the conservation chair for a couple of years, but I'm also a biologist at CSUB. So as I said, I like to appeal to your environmental conscience and the quality of life in Bakersfield now and how we see Bakersfield in the future with everything that is going on. The river is dying, the air quality is bad, and we squander our land. We should be more wise in figuring out where we want to build and how these building units should be and what we can do to save some of our endangered species from extinction. So what I have to say is more related to the second housing unit that is being proposed, tract 7471. So let me read that to you. So according to the city's own biological study.
We'll have an opportunity during that time if you want to come by. Yes.
Okay, good. Then I will.
Because we're out of time and there's some others who wish to speak.
Okay, good. Thank you. Then.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lauer. Ms. Briel, would you like to speak in opposition? And this is regarding 9A.
Hi there. What I'd like to speak to is that right now we know that Bakersfield has arguably the dirtiest air in the nation, largely because the emissions resulting from past projects. According to the Cal EnviroScreen, the tracts are located 95% percentile for ozone exposure and the 99th percentile for PM 2.5 exposure. This huge existing PM 2.5 exposure, for example, is a clear health risk, particularly for sensitive receptors or people like me. I want to put a personal face on that. We have a very wonderful woman in our community right now who is isolated in her home because of the poor air quality. She contributes greatly to the community through the Youth Resource Alliance. I'm probably not saying that correctly. And it's important that she be protected. I tried to become a little more aware of the mechanics of how this sausage is made by reading the staff document or trying to, reaching out and trying to understand the various state legislations that guide you. And the one thing that I got from it was your job is to make sure that I, as a citizen, know what these decisions are going to do to my health. And what they're saying is that is not happening, that you are not really telling me, Miss Citizen, that the air will potentially cause my death early or my child not to survive as long as she should or be in the health that she should. So the reason why I'm asking you to reject this project and go back to the drawing board and think about it harder is translate emissions into something that makes sense to me so that I know you're not going to harm me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brill. And we have a minute and 30 seconds left. Mrs. Bell, would you like to offer comment in opposition? Marjorie Bell is next.
Oh, Margie?
Mm-hmm. Can you reset the clock a little bit? She was walking down the aisle.
Yes, I apologize. I'm not sure this is where I should be talking, but I concur with Gordon Knipp. I concur with Babak Nafisi. I think we need to step back a bit and maybe even, as many communities have, declare some kind of a moratorium on this this wild and crazy notion that we have to fill up every bit of land and space that we have with new houses, especially those houses available to people with better incomes. Salt Lake City, for example, has done that, and there are developers who are interested in lower income housing and infill. And young people need to be able to build equity in lower cost housing. And generally in the housing area, I would like us really to step back and give this some serious thought, if not now, in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bell. And our 15 minutes for opposition is up at this point. So now, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support of staff's recommendation? Please come forward at this time. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor Go and members of the City Council. My name is Brian Winter. I'm the land use and CEQA attorney on behalf of the project and on behalf of the applicant team. We have our entire project team here, members of the applicant team, members of ownership, as well as the technical consultants that are relevant to the comments that have been made tonight. I wanted to briefly indicate that we support the good work that we believe staff has done in connection with this project. They've confirmed that this project is consistent with your general plan, consistent with your zoning ordinance, and that it does comply with CEQA. I agree with that completely. This project is supported by detailed technical analysis, responses to comments that have been made in writing by the appellant, and those have been addressed and, in my view, resolved. The result of the fact that this project is one that is consistent with your general plan and zoning ordinance is something that I think should be emphasized here tonight. At a bare minimum, that means that this project is a project that is protected by the Housing Accountability Act, which in my view is the most important state housing production law that we have in California. We have many such laws. In my view, the HAA is the most important law. That law does many things, one of which is that it puts extremely limited circumstances under which a jurisdiction can lawfully disapprove a housing project. I don't think I need to get into those details, but the only way in which such a project can be disapproved is if the jurisdiction can make findings supported by a preponderance of evidence in the record that the project would have a specific adverse impact on public health and safety. There's no evidence in the record of any such impact, never mind a preponderance of the evidence. But I think it's also important to understand that the Housing Accountability, in enacting the Housing Accountability Act and amending it some 25 times since its enactment in 1982, the legislature has regularly recognized that the state has a decades-long housing supply and related affordability crisis. And the legislature has recognized that the lack of the lack of housing in this state, the lack of approving specific projects causes adverse environmental impacts. I think that's a very important and correct and critical insight. When you don't approve a project somewhere, it will go somewhere else, and it will cause other environmental impacts. It will increase the environmental impacts. There's the legislature recognizes that in their studies to support that. With respect to the particular appeal tonight, and with respect to Mr. Nafisi's comments, I support generalized concerns about the environment and the need for all communities, including this community, to do its job in protecting the environment for the citizens of Bakersfield. I would note, however, that when there's a challenge to a project like this, and when there are allegations that the environmental analysis is not adequate, it is the appellant's burden to make a fair argument supported by substantial evidence in the record that either the environmental analysis is inadequate in some way, or that there will be adverse environmental consequences warranting either redoing the mitigated negative declaration in this context or warranting an EIR. That is the appellant's burden. I don't believe that's been met tonight. There are a great many generalized concerns about the environment, none of which are directly, in my view, tied to this project. And I don't believe there has been any argument, much less an argument supported by substantial evidence, that this project would have an impact that would undermine the validity of the M&D that has been prepared and already certified by your planning commission for this project. With that, I will stop, save time for the rest of our team. I'm happy to answer any questions, happy to have any members of our team come up and answer any questions, and I would urge you respectfully to deny the appeal and uphold the approval of this project.
Thank you, Mr. Winter. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in support of staff's recommendation? Mr. Domahusky, I see that you submitted a card.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Mayor Go and council members. Dave Domahowski, representing the Home Builders Association of Kern County. I just wanted to indicate that we reviewed the staff reports for this appeal as well as the following item on your agenda, and think the city staff and the applicants have prepared adequate responses to all the issues raised by the appellants. And I would like to remind the city that California and the city of Bakersfield share in a serious housing crisis. Only about 25% of all Bakersfield households can qualify for a mortgage for the median price home in Bakersfield, which is now approaching $400,000. The statewide median is approaching $1 million. That's not sustainable. It's a bad sign for Bakersfield's and the state's future economic development prospect. I'd also like to mention that our kind of notorious housing market analyst, Gary Crabtree, already declared the death of the entry-level housing market in Bakersfield earlier this year. That's not a good sign for our community. So I wanted to urge the council to support the staff's recommendation. I think many of the issues raised by the appellants in this project and the following item on your agenda have more to do with financial interest than environmental interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Domahowski. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in support of staff's recommendation? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to provide a rebuttal in opposition to staff's recommendation? We have 5 minutes total for this section. Welcome.
Hello again. I'm Babak Nafisi, providing a brief rebuttal. The claim that that we haven't that the concerns I've raised here that are, quote, generalized concerns about the environment, and that we haven't pointed to any substantial evidence of...
Can you get a little closer to the mic, please?
That we
Thank you.
haven't identified substantial evidence supporting a finding that there will be that this project will cause significant environmental impacts, really misses the mark. And so maybe I can clarify and, like I said, put a finer point on it. What I argued here today is that The problem with the MND, the mitigated negative declaration, is that in preparing it, staff has failed to proceed in the manner required by CEQA. So when I bring up the issues about losing the California, losing the waiver and not being able to rely on emission reductions from requiring zero emission cars after 2035, what that means is that when staff bases its conclusions about the lack of significant impact to climate on consistency with the plan, the state's mitigation GHG reduction plans that have been undermined at a fundamental level, then staff can no longer reasonably rely on that consistency determination without at least analyzing the factors that I mentioned and explain why it's still appropriate to rely on that consistency. Similarly, the gentleman who represents the developers mentioned the consistency with the general plan. And that's fine. That's not saying much, because if it wasn't consistent, you couldn't approve it. But the very general plan with which this project is consistent also concluded that its implementation would result in significant environmental impacts on air quality. So when you have multiple projects of this kind, like the one that is coming next, where you have 100, 200 residential units, and staff says no mitigation is required because it falls below that threshold, that's how you get to that significant impact of implementing the general plan. So CEQA says you can't rely on a single threshold to conclude a project doesn't have significant impacts if there's other evidence or other arguments apart from that threshold that show that the project could have a significant impact. That's what I've done here tonight and in our letter. The fact that implementation of the general plan, with which they argue this project is consistent, will result in significant air quality impacts, is evidence that you shouldn't just rely on the threshold by the APCD and consider other evidence, like the ones I provided, that show that this project will have an incremental, significant contribution to existing and worsening air quality. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nafisi. Is there anyone else who would like to provide rebuttal in opposition to staff's recommendation? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to provide rebuttal in support of staff's recommendation?
Good
Mr.
evening
Winter,
again,
would you
Brian,
raise the mic, please?
Yes, Brian
Thank you.
Winter again on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Nafisi argues that the project failed to proceed in the manner required by CEQA, but again, in my view, has not made an argument to demonstrate how that's possibly true. In order, again, as I stated earlier, in order for a mitigated negative declaration to be inadequate, requiring recirculation and preparation of a new mitigated negative declaration or an environmental impact report, there must be fair argument supported by substantial evidence that the project would have a significant environmental impact. There is no such evidence tonight. CEQA defines speculation to include argument, unsubstantiated opinion, or narrative, such as that provided by Mr. Nafisi tonight. That sort of argument is not substantial evidence and is not it does not rise to the level of a fair argument that would invalidate or undermine the validity of this EIR. With respect to the project's consistency with the general plan, that is critically important. As I said again, the Housing Accountability Act is the most important state housing production law we have in California. It dates to 1982. The Housing Accountability Act establishes that when a project is consistent with applicable objective provisions of the general plan, and they're supported also by case law, North Pacifica and Sequoia Hills, Oakland case. The only way in which a jurisdiction can lawfully disapprove such a project is to find, by a preponderance of the evidence, that the project would have a significant, direct, quantifiable, and unavoidable impact on the environment, and that the only way to avoid that impact is to say no to the project or require that it be built at a lower density. There's no evidence of any of that. There's no ability to make those findings. The fact, again, that this project is consistent with the general plan is critically important, and I would argue it's the entire ballgame in light of the fact that there is no substantial evidence presented by the appellants that this mitigated negative declaration is inadequate in any fashion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winter. Is there anyone else who would like to provide rebuttal statements in support of staff's recommendation? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and return it to council for comment and action. Councilmember Smith, this is in your ward.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to ask staff, I've seen a letter was submitted September 9th that seemed to be about the same stuff that I had already read. Does staff have any comments on the additional letter?
Councilmember Smith, basically, it's the same argument that's been articulated tonight.
That's what I thought. So staff has nothing else to add?
That's correct.
Thank you. With that, I will move to deny the appeal and approve the subdivision.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Vice Mayor.
I just had a general question for staff and for just kind of like the good of public knowledge. And there was a mention of our HCP, and in the absence of a local HCP, how do we approach this process, just for public knowledge?
Vice Mayor Core, so the process that we've been following is that we require that the applicant submit specific species studies to have them approved by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And this is done prior to the city issuing a building permit. So that happens later on.
Okay, thank you. I felt it was important for that to just be mentioned so that there is an idea that there is a complete absence of this being a part of the process, though having a local HCP, I do personally feel adds a benefit to localizing some of the conversations that's been had, while also balancing the very delicate, doing the very delicate dance between being in a housing crisis, affordability crisis, building crisis, while understanding that we've inherited the environmental impact that we have here in the San Joaquin Valley. So that was really my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. You have a motion to support staff's recommendation. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with Council Members Weir and Bashir Tash absent.
Thank you. And now, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Continued public appeal hearing of Planning Commission's approval of vesting tentative tract map number 7471 and its proposed mitigated negative declaration, San Joaquin Engineering, Inc., representing LGI Homes, California, LLC, is proposing vesting tentative tract map number 7471 to subdivide 83.97 acres into 363 single-family residential lots and various private and public lots for streets, landscaping, and other ancillary uses in the R1 zone located at the southwest corner of Morning Drive and Palladino Drive. Consideration of a resolution adopting a mitigated negative declaration pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act and approving vesting tentative tract map number 7471. Gordon Knipp, representing the Sierra Club, submitted an appeal to the Planning Commission's approval of the request.
Thank you. Colleagues, just checking that nobody needs a break before we go into this section. City Manager Clegg.
Mayor and Council, again, our Development Services Director, Phil Burns, will provide a summary for this item.
City Clerk, we have the presentation. Mayor and council members, similar to the previous appeal, this is for vesting tentative track 7471. It's located southwest corner of Palladino Drive in Morning, here on the map. It is zoned R1 single family and has a land use designation of low density residential. So again, this project is consistent with the general plan and zoning. And this is the vesting tentative track in question. This particular project went to Planning Commission on May 1st, 2025. Two opposition speakers, Lori Pasanti, Director of Local Chapter of Sierra Club, and Jeremy Bowman, a neighboring resident. This project was appealed to your board by Gordon Knipp, representing Sierra Club. Similar issues to the previous appeal: air quality and cumulative climate change analysis, deficient mitigation measures, deferral of species and biological protocols surveys for the kit fox, burning owl, crotchets bumblebee, and needed before project approval. And also similar, the M&D violates CEQA. Just like the previous project, the applicant did have consultants, qualified consultants, do air quality studies, same methodology for San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control. Analysis supports the determination that these impacts and projects are below thresholds levels are not significant. Mitigation measures applied to project are to provide consistency with implementing San Joaquin Valley air rules and regulations. Both CEQA guidelines and relevant case law do not require specific thresholds for estimating project contribution to cumulative climate change impacts, but do support assessment of project consistency with regional and statewide programs reducing GHG emissions. The project also meets the best performance standards, reduces GHG to 29% per AB 32, including all the same mitigation measures that Building Code, Title 24 energy efficiency, green building requirements, solar pre-wire, EV vehicles, and additional items. Similar to the previous project, there was biologic studies, this time done by McCormick Biological Incorporated. They provide information analysis to respond to biological resources related to this project and the initial study. The study identifies those listed are sensitive species. For further evaluation, species-specific studies will be required upon consultation with the California Fish and Wildlife Department. The allegation that the CEQA has been violated. CEQA doesn't require perfection, but again, adequacy and completeness and a good faith effort to full disclosure. CEQA allows for differences of opinion, which makes a determination. The proposed mitigating negative declaration is supported by project-specific analysis by qualified air quality and biological resources consultants, and supplemented with further analysis based on the applicant and certain CEQA sections and case law. Further in your record, LGI's air quality and biological consultants submitted supplemental letters, which should be in your file. With that, staff recommends denial of the appeal.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Mr. Clegg, do you wish to add anything?
Thank you, Mayor. I do not.
Thank you. So at this time, the continued public hearing on item 9B from the August 13th, 2025 City Council meeting is up for discussion and decision. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? So is that Mr. Chase? Go ahead.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. My name is Chase Preciado, and I'm speaking on behalf of Supporters Alliance for Environmental Responsibility, or SAFER. We submitted written comments earlier today. SAFER respectfully requests that the City Council approve the appeal and deny approval of the project and MND. Under CEQA, if there is a fair argument that a project may cause significant environmental impacts, an EIR is required. That is the case here. SAFER retained expert wildlife biologist Dr. Sean Smallwood, whose team conducted surveys of the site. He found that the project could significantly impact special status species through habitat loss, wildlife movement disruption, and increased mortalities from traffic, window strikes, and predation by cats. These impacts remain unaddressed and require an EIR. SAFER also retained Baseline Environmental Consulting. Baseline found that the project fails to comply with California's 2022 scoping plan, which requires transportation electrification, VMT reduction, and building decarbonization. The M&D does not disclose Bakersfield's already degraded air quality and resulting health risks, and relies on thresholds not supported by substantial evidence. The project could cause a significant cumulative impact on human health. The M&D's conclusion that energy impacts are less than significant because the project complies with green building codes is legally inadequate. There is substantial evidence that the project may have significant impacts on biological resources, greenhouse gases, air quality, health, and energy. CEQA requires these issues to be analyzed in an EIR. For these reasons, we urge the Council to grant the appeal and require preparation of a full environmental impact report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Preciado. Mr. Knipp.
I am Gordon Knipp. I'm the vice chair of the local Sierra Club chapter. First of all, I'd like to note that the Sierra Club is not opposed to new housing per se. We would be pleased actually to see a new housing project that thoroughly addresses the its cumulative impacts and of course the affordability issues. For this project, the Sierra Club has submitted several comment letters, and our attorney has submitted a letter as well. These submissions address way more issues than we can speak to in our allotted time tonight, so we'll leave much for the written record and focus on 3 issues tonight. Issues with a common theme of the city's lack of appreciation for the cumulative effects of this tract. For each of these 3 issues, the city mistakenly considers the project's cumulative impact to be insignificant. The 3 issues, habitat loss, air pollution, and the climate crisis, must all be addressed on a cumulative basis, and thus far, the city has refused to do so. I'll talk a little bit about the climate change issue now. I'll leave the other issues, air pollution and habitat loss, to a couple of other very well qualified folks. But let me talk a little bit about climate, about the cumulative climate change issue. The Sierra Club has presented clear scientific evidence in our earlier submissions that the climate crisis is inherently a cumulatively significant issue. No one project, of course, is large enough to heat the atmosphere. But cumulatively, our stupid species continues what UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls, and I'm quoting here, quote, the madness of incinerating our only home. In spite of the scientific consensus, the negative declaration seems to have a bias against accepting the reality and seriousness of the climate crisis. For example, the air study considers a significance determination for the project's cumulative contribution to climate change to be speculative. Nevertheless, the negative declaration is willing to speculatively conclude that the project's cumulative GHG emissions are not significant. Conclusions based on unacceptable bias must certainly be approached with skepticism. The city should require environmental documents that reflect scientific objectivity and impartiality. The city's lack of mitigation and its insignificance conclusion for climate change is based to some extent on the assertion that the project will follow state mandates that will address the issue. This conclusion may be undermined by the potential impacts of President Trump and Congress's actions to block California's mandates, for example, to phase out gas-powered cars and clean up diesel trucks, and propose federal rules that relax the regulations that apply to gas and coal-fired power plants. These federal actions may result in higher emissions of greenhouse gases, which in turn could affect California's ability to achieve its GHG reduction targets. Any conclusion based on California mandates, the conclusion here that the project's impact is cumulatively insignificant, Any such conclusion is here clearly speculative. If we care not to leave an overheated planet for future generations, the city must thoroughly address the climate crisis. In our earlier submissions, we have presented feasible potential mitigation measures. The city should require sufficient mitigation to substantially reduce the impact of the project on the climate crisis. I will let a couple of other folks speak to some of the other issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nip. Who else would like to speak in opposition?
So
Welcome.
again, my name is Antje Lauer, CSUB and also Sierra Club, and I want to underscore what Gordon Nip and the gentleman before actually said. I also want to point out before I read this to you that think about who's moving into those housing units. These are not low-income housing units. You know, are we providing homes for our people in need here for Kern County, or are we providing homes for people who move in from other areas? Do we care? Okay, and then as a biologist, I care about animals. And you know, the Endangered Species Act also requests and requires that we also are aware about what we are doing to endangered and threatened species when we build houses and use our land, right? So let me read this to you. So according to the city's own biological study for site Tract 7471, in this regard, this site is almost certainly habitat of the San Joaquin kit fox, an endangered species. Nesting birds and burrowing owls, many other important species are there as well. And loss of habitat to urbanization like this is a major reason for species decline, urban sprawl. I actually asked AI, when will the kit fox be extinct when we continue like that? And AI said 10 to 20 years. I think that's kind of shocking. I think we need to be aware that what we're doing has these kind of effects. Okay, if this were the only project in the works, we probably wouldn't worry about this loss of 84 acres of habitat. But there are dozens of new local projects in the works, each of which diverse species habitat, each of them. When all these new cumulative projects are built, the displaced kit fox will be hard-pressed to find somewhere else to forage, perhaps reduced to stealing food from dogs from an urban backyard or something like that. Where will the burrowing owls go when all the land is gone? Loss of habitat like this used to be addressed by the Metropolitan Bakersfield Habitat Conservation Plan that recently expired. The developer would pay $2,135 per acre to purchase and preserve habitat for species at risk of extinction and threatened. But the Metropolitan Bakersfield Habitat Conservation Plan doesn't exist anymore. For this project, Tract 7471, 84 acres of habitat will be lost to the kit fox, the burrowing owl and other species. And no other compensating property will be preserved as in the past. The city's own biological study from August 2024 for this Tract 7471 admits, and we quote, the cumulative effects of ongoing urbanization and habitat loss of the Bakersfield area should be immediately evaluated for potential significant long-term effects that may consequently have substantial impacts to status species, such as the kit fox, and cumulative impacts in biological resources from this project and other projects in the vicinity would be potentially significant. So again, each individual housing development is not significant, but taking together, it makes a big difference. So where do we see Bakersfield in 10, 20 years, right? Is the quality of life going up, the quality of life going down? Now that the Metropolitan Bakersfield Habitat Conservation Plan is no longer in effect, the city must find another way to effectively address the project's contribution to cumulative habitat loss. The city should admit the significance of cumulative impacts to biological resources, including endangered species, and should require viable mitigation measures for these impacts, including purchases of replacement habitat as in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lauer. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Maria Polite, and I'm here as an individual, not as a member of an organization. But I'm here because I have a number of questions. Number one, are we spreading human development and quietly accepting the demise of all the wildlife that would have been otherwise inhabited the land being developed? The mountains and the hills of the eastern part of our city are surely the most beautiful part of our city. In 1983, I was fortunate enough to move out and live on 3 acres in this area. It certainly doesn't look the same as it did when I was there. I lived there for 20 years. And tonight I want to speak for the beauty and the wild things that are there. The bobcats I faced on my early morning walks, the coyotes I often saw in the hillsides, the kit foxes that really I never saw. Consider the effects of housing developments with the unknown effects of chemicals and plastics permeating the environment. Wildlife is declining. The housing developments and their human population will surely create an out of balance condition with the rest of life. The quality and quantity of non-human forms are in a state of actual mass extinction. Do we want to add to that? Please consider other ways to provide for population growth more than these large housing developments. And I found a photograph that illustrates my point, so I would like to leave it for the council members and staff.
Thank you, Ms. Polite. You can put it in that tray right there. Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation?
Good evening. Bob Aknafisi for the Sierra Club. Very quick point. In response to an earlier question about how the issue of impact to protected species is handled, I think City Attorney mentioned that they have to consult with, the applicant has to consult with the Fish and Wildlife Service before a grading permit or building permit is issued. The whole point of having a HCP is to avoid having to do individualized applications for take permit or for authorization for take, because getting an individual standalone permit is very time consuming and very difficult. So what's happening here is not a take permit for each project. As far as I know, and I've done public records requests to both the county and the city, the sufficiency of this process that City Attorney mentioned has not been demonstrated. The city does not include on a regular basis conditions that ensure that the mitigation is actually going to, that adequate mitigation is imposed to a less than significant level. And if you consider the local Fish and Wildlife Service, all of a sudden, they don't have more staff, but since the Habitat Conservation Plan went away, the amount of work that you have put on them and every other city has gone up geometrically. So if you want to rely on this kind of a process, there has to be a demonstration that this works, and that demonstration has not been made. So I think there is no significant, there's no substantial evidence that the impact on species will be addressed to a less than significant level with the process that the city follows right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And unless somebody can do it in 4 seconds, thank you all for your comments. And now, is there anyone who'd like to speak?
Madam Mayor, if we could have a bio break, maybe.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
We need all the council present, so we're going to take a quick break. 6:42. Before we go to this, I've been informed that there's somebody in the audience who would like to speak in opposition, and the clock was running. We had a little technical difficulty, so we apologize. I know we have a special new team here that's trying their very best. So, Madam City Attorney, who is that person? Oh, come on
I
up.
didn't get her name, but yes.
Yes, and we're going to give you 1 minute.
Hi, my name is Lauren Rodriguez. I am a community member here in support of the opposition with Sierra Club. Of the community members who are here also in support today, could you raise your hand? Support of the opposition. Yes, support of the opposition. I was born and raised in Bakersfield, California, privileged to have been from here. Like Claire, I showed up maybe 20 years ago now with a backpack as large as I was in front of a city council meeting, and I'm here again 20 years later. I recently moved home. I'm an emergency medicine physician. I moved home to help care for a family member who's immunosuppressed. For 6 weeks, we drove over the mountains to LA for care. Every time driving back, we drove into that bowl of our brown air that we suffer from in our Central Valley, both as what we sacrifice as a community for others, for feeding our nation, the oil, but also as a result of our local decisions. And I strongly urge you as a committee to think of what we can do locally for our air. You do have a say. You do have power in making our air
Thank
better.
you, Doctor. You can just say it one more sentence and wrap it up. But
yes.
Our time is up.
Okay. If it were just one house, one development, that's one thing. But I urge you to look at the cumulative effects, because what is one more housing project if we don't have clean air to breathe?
Thank you, Doctor. And now, Mr. Martin, so we're back in the section of supporting staff's recommendation. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Go, Vice Mayor Carr, and City Council members, as well as distinguished staff. Thank you very much. My name is Brandon Martin. That's Brandon Martin. I'm a local land use attorney. It's not my first time appearing before the council or the planning commission, so there's some friendly, familiar faces all around. But I don't take every client. There's something special about LGI in this project in particular that I think has been overlooked or even misstated. This is a project that helps people who grew up here and maybe they're living in an apartment, buy their first home. Affordable housing is a term of art in the law that we talk about and for taxation purposes and some tiny bit litigation and policy. But when I talk about affordable housing, that's LGI. And I'm not exactly sure why we've been talking about McMansions, because if you want to look at our track map, that's not at all what we've been proposing at all. In fact, the history of this project is interesting. It's why I think the Sierra Club, and by the way, I should take as an aside, I would consider Gordon Knipp a friend of mine, personally, and Babak Nafisi, I've called and asked for help on several questions that have environmental significance, and I consider him kind of a dean of CEQA law, so there's a lot of respect going both ways here. But indiscriminately papering this project without finding out anything about what we're trying to do here is a cheap shot. And it makes sense if you consider wanting to have a global conversation about some important public policy issues. But if you look at this history of this project, it just makes no sense. We had an entitled, vested track map that we could have built on, and we decided to work with the city to make an environmentally superior project that helped the city meet some of its housing goals and some of the state of California's housing goals, much more dense, more walkable, environmentally superior in just about every way I can imagine, if you compare the two maps. But here we are, and I believe it's because we are, again, being indiscriminately papered here by some folks with some good intentions. In terms of those global issues, I'll just comment personally that I agree with Councilwoman Carr and the Sierra Club, and hopefully some development representatives here, that we should have a continuation or a reboot of our habitat conservation program. That's just, I'm not speaking for LGI, I'm just speaking for myself. When we adopted those in the past, we considered that for the purpose of streamlining development as well as environmental protection. It's a win-win. Now, finding the right number and the right cost for people involved takes debate and some discussion. And I don't have an opinion on that, but I do have an opinion that we should have the debate and the discussion. My client can't do that by himself, even as a company like LGI. It takes the city of Bakersfield, it takes other stakeholders. It is extremely unfair to ask my client to have to mitigate its project by creating an HCP in Bakersfield when one is expired. Can't do that by ourselves. We can do a lot, but not that. The same thing with the local thresholds of significance. If there's an update to the city general plan in the future, those local thresholds of significance that we could only speculate as to what they should be, at this point, could be narrowed down given criteria that we can follow and use in our reports in the future to better help the environment. But if you look at what we have in front of us, and you asked applicants like LGI to simply make up a local threshold of significance, you know what would happen? And this is just a practical matter. They'd be papered by the Sierra Club because we didn't choose the right threshold of local significance. That's just what would happen. And we'd be here all over again. So is there a discussion that should be happen? Yes, but it shouldn't result in the destruction of a very good project for people in our community who will be hopefully making the leap from being renters to first-time homeowners. And you're all out in the community more than I am because you're elected officials. But this is a theme that I've seen over and over again where people say, maybe it's because I'm a land use attorney, hey, it's the folks from San Francisco and Los Angeles, they're coming in here and they're buying our homes, they're racking up the value, we can't afford to live here. We're doing everything we were supposed to do. We were told when we were growing up we'd be able to buy a home and live the American dream if we did those things. And they can't because housing's too expensive. Well, one solution is Evan Licht and LGI. So I'd like him to come down and maybe talk a little bit about the project and his company, which has a solution. And we also have our engineering and environmental consulting team here as well, if you have any questions about the substantial evidence in the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
I have a handout for the group as well.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Mayor Go, Vice Mayor Carr, and the council members. My name's Evan Light with LGI Homes. And I'm really here to just provide an overview of the project, tell you a little bit more about what we do as a company, and really just thank staff for their time and working diligently on this project. But as Brandon had mentioned, our focus as a home builder is converting renters to homeowners. And so really what that means is with any project that we have, we do not buy a piece of property unless there's 50,000 renters within 30 miles. And so our focus is how do we provide a quality, affordable product that we can get somebody who's never bought a home, never thought about buying a home, how do we get them into their first home? And so if you look at the packet I handed out, really the second page here is just kind of an overview of our history in Bakersfield. In Northeast Bakersfield. We entered the market about 6 years ago or so with Juliana's Garden, which was a defunct project that had been sitting for about 10 years. And we stepped up and built it out. And currently we're working on a project adjacent called Morningstar Ranch, which has been highly successful for us in getting people to buy a home for the first time. And then you see here Morning Sun Estates. This is a project that's the marketing name we're giving it, Track 7471. And so really our focus is, as a home builder, especially in Bakersfield, we're also operating in the southwest part of the city, is to have a long-term pipeline to continue help converting renters to homeowners within the city of Bakersfield. And so that's why we're here tonight, and that's what this project would help us achieve. And so a little bit more of an overview. So this is 363 homes. As Brandon had mentioned prior, there was a previous map that was larger lots with no public park, no paseos, nothing really for the community to enjoy. And so we took a look at that and said, how can we build a more efficient site plan that is going to build a better sense of community for the homeowners? And so we've added a park, we've added walking trails, 6.6 acres of parks and paseos, and a mix of 5,000 and 6,000 square foot lots, which is, in our opinion, kind of the sweet spot of you're still getting a quality sized lot that we can build a quality home on, but we can still achieve an affordable price point at this lot size. And then the next 3 pages are sort of overviews of the park that we're looking to build, with basketball courts, shade structure, swing sets, playgrounds, so on and so forth. And so really the way when I'm looking at this, I'm focused on, I have a wife, a 3 and a 1-year-old, and it's really what I want to live in the community, and how do we create an environment where people can live there and be part of a community and enjoy themselves. And then lastly is just some renderings of the architecture that we've been building adjacent at our Morningstar Ranch project. And it's really it. I'm just here to answer questions and say thank you to staff and everybody else for their time.
Thank you, Mr. Light. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in support of staff's recommendation? Mr. Martin?
Yes, I neglected to say a couple things that I think respect merits that I say. I noticed that the Drury firm sent a paralegal, probably from Oakland or somewhere. He read so fast, auctioneer style, I couldn't take notes on whatever reports had been commissioned by his firm. We haven't seen them, and it's the council meeting in which you'll make the decision. For just basic fairness, due process reasons, I think that should be excluded from the record. I don't know what it is. I can't even respond to it. The other thing about the habitat is that this lot was raised. It was just leveled for the purposes of build out of the previous project that was mentioned that didn't go forward. So it's not that was a while ago, but I just want to put that in case you're misunderstanding, where this is and what the sort of the land looks like. It looks like it's been bulldozed. The other thing that I would mention is that we received an early letter that we were able to communicate with from somebody just from across the street. This is where your council has decided the path of growth should go. And I know not everybody on the council was here when that decision was made, but it's that general plan that decides that path of growth is what my clients as developers have to make their reason-backed investment decisions based on. So they need to be able to say, okay, this is where the city wants the affordable housing that LGI makes. LGI can make the decision to make the investment in Bakersfield. So we're really asking you to help us confirm to your vision for housing in Bakersfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Anyone else wishing to speak in support of staff's recommendation? Seeing none, is there anyone who wishes to rebuttal in opposition to staff's recommendation? You have 5 minutes.
Gordon Knipp with the Sierra Club. The developer talks about converting renters to homeowners and first-time home buyers, and they seem to be contending that since there are more lots proposed on this project than on an earlier one, then the project will consist of affordable housing. Let me point out that the lots as proposed vary from 5,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet. Houses built on the larger lots almost certainly will not be affordable to folks whose incomes are at the median or below, and even the smaller lots, of course, could accommodate large, expensive houses. If the developer really does intend to build affordable housing, that is a noble motive. But having dealt with many developers for almost 50 years, I've become a little cynical. without an incentive or a requirement from the city, I would be very surprised if the developer's profit motive to make more money didn't prevail over the developer's noble motive to provide affordable housing. If you approve this project because you want affordable housing, I would suggest that you don't leave affordability to the developer's goodwill and nobility. Place a condition on the project that requires the new housing to be affordable. Perhaps even change the zoning to allow for condominium or apartment construction. To quote Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. Perhaps these developers are noble and trustworthy. I hope so. But President Reagan, I think, would suggest that you place a formal condition on the project that requires housing to be affordable so that you can monitor and enforce, that is, verify. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knipp. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
My name is Lori Pasante, and I am the chapter director of the Kern Cahuilla chapter of the Sierra Club. I'm also a very long-time resident of Bakersfield, and today is my birthday, by the way.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you very much. What I want is real climate action. Real climate action. Everything that everybody else has said in opposition to this project is not in opposition to housing, and certainly not affordable housing. Let's be very clear about that. It's in opposition to the cumulative impacts that this city council and this city is required to account for, and you're just not. It's not happening, right? I'm older now, like clearly today is proof of that. I'm not going to be around forever. We're not going to be around forever, but my kids, God willing, will be. And I don't want this to be an industrial hellscape for them to live in. You know, I'm glad they brought up Morningstar. Anybody is familiar with that, Morningstar housing development? Google Morningstar explosive levels of methane, because that is where 7471 is located, right there by Thorner Elementary. I take my daughter to piano lessons right there off of Palladino every Wednesday, right past those explosive levels of methane where the abandoned oil wells are located. That is where we're calling family friendly so that some folks can make some money. Let's start focusing on climate change. Let's focus on those cumulative impacts. Let's have those conversations about the HCP. Let's have that. But let's stop pretending that you're actually doing something about it and actually do something about it.
Thank you, Ms. Pesante. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to rebuttal in opposition? Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to rebuttal in support of staff's recommendation? Mr. Martin, do you wish to rebuttal?
I'm not sure it's a rebuttal as much as just a clarification. The previous speaker made some good points generally about our city. And about our drive forward as people looking to make things better for the next generation. But she mentioned something about there being some retired oil and gas or methane buildup that's a neighboring community. That's not our land. So the Morningstar, it's not us. It's nearby, but it's not us. And that's the important thing for you to understand.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Is there anyone else who would like to provide rebuttal in opposition, in support of staff's recommendation? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and return it to council for comment and action. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I would ask staff if they have anything to add or any comments from what we've heard. Okay, thank you. With that, I will make a motion to deny the appeal and approve the tentative track 7471.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Vice Mayor.
Where are we in the conversation about our HCP?
Councilmember Kaur, for the benefit of the public awareness, the City Council identified development of an HCP as one of your priority initiatives for this coming fiscal year. That was adopted at a workshop in the spring and went into effect for this fiscal year. And so Phil Burns and his team have been working on a plan to bring forward a revised habitat conservation plan. When we met with your council a couple of years ago, we didn't have a plan that was feasible in consideration of the different stakeholder feedback related to some of those costs at the time. But we have worked with a CDFW, we've worked internally and with stakeholders to identify an alternative plan, and we have now contracted with a consultant to actually write that up. The framework is something that we've discussed, and there's a general support of the framework from CDFW. It's going to take several months for that to be developed in specific language, which would then be able to be prepared for public comment and review by the community. But we anticipate being an environmental impact report specific to that, which is probably the longer time frame. And so we've identified about 4 different steps to get to conclusion on a habitat conservation plan. But because the EIR should be pretty significant on that, we're expecting that to be 8 to 9 months, Phil? Oh, 18 months, heavens. And so we won't be done with that this fiscal year, but we're going to be well down the path of having a habitat conservation plan, in EIR by this fiscal year to be then done in next fiscal year.
And can you share what CDFW stands for?
Sorry, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, who approves habitat conservation plans. And again, in the meantime, that same department is who governs the incident take permits and the mitigation efforts that are required. It's not an optional, just for council's benefit. Depending, of course, on the studies that are conducted, but if a species or habitat are identified in that initial study, CDFW has been requiring those mitigations to occur absent our habitat conservation plan. So mitigation does occur. We just believe that there's benefits for all to have that both be intentional and strategic and streamlined, as well as be able to address some of those longer term broader impacts by having a comprehensive plan for the city.
In a traditional, in the process of developing a habitat conservation plan, traditionally, when a city works on an HCP, is it a common practice to involve community input? And what has that looked like in the past, and what can that look like in the future for an HCP that we're working on?
It does involve community feedback. As I noted, there are sort of the standard requirements for public, review and public comment, but also given, the interest in our community, as we develop this first, formal draft of a revised framework, we'll take it out to our many stakeholders, have their, comment and review, as well as those more formal required review periods.
Can we invite the stakeholders that are here in attendance to review that as well? I would love for their input to be involved with the HCP, and I do agree. I think a healthy dialogue on something as impactful as an HCP is incredibly important, and it is vital that we have something that is something we can pass locally. My second question was, I'm curious about the point of having certain requirements placed and exploring that as to having different criteria. I think it was an earlier conversation that was had as to having different requirements of developers to have certain percentages be, I guess you could say, reserved for affordable housing when developing, and that being kind of an incentive / encouraging affordable housing being developed within larger developments. I think that kind of speaks to the conversation we were having at the 3:30 meeting in not only economic development, but housing and economic development kind of going hand in hand. And is that an incentive that, or an ordinance or something that can be encouraged that exists in other cities? Is that something we can also explore here at the City of Bakersfield?
Thank you, Vice Mayor, Mayor and Council. I would make sure and draw a clear distinction between a policy choice that sort of mandates versus it creates an incentive. And so you asked about an incentive. So our Economic and Community Development Department is looking at some of the other cities that have created incentive programs where typically it comes out of something like an Affordable Housing Trust Fund, funds that we've already set aside for affordable housing. You can actually use those dollars to help basically pay down the costs of certain units so that they can be subsidized affordable housing. I would also just point to, this is a much broader conversation and don't want to go down too much of the rabbit hole, but there's market rate affordable and then there's subsidized affordable. Your council has done much to direct staff to develop policies, and I kind of mentioned these earlier, around densities and land use and impact fees that try and create more market rate affordable housing that can just be more affordable in the straight marketplace. But I think what you're referring to is more of the city actually using some of our funds for affordable housing to buy a certain number of units that could be offered for home ownership at a lower rate, or that could could potentially be entered again like into the community land trust as homes that continue to be in the land trust. And so our team is looking at that. We don't have that all ready for council consideration, but we anticipate that in this fiscal year to be able to come back and make some recommendations about how we can use some of those dollars from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to get a mix of incomes in some of our market rate developments that we buy down those units.
Yeah, that was probably my next point also, is connecting. I think it would be a missed opportunity when we have developments of this caliber, size, and we've seen 2 of them today, if we aren't also pairing the community land trust that exists within the city to actually reserve some of the homes being developed, even if it's a smaller percentage within a large development of this size, that can then encourage home ownership in different parts of the city where the burden isn't exactly entirely on the developer, but there is some responsibility that the developer carries in allocating certain housing for market rate affordable and or both, and it can come from 2 different streams, whether that's our Affordable Housing Trust Fund and or our Community Land Trust. And I feel that hits at exactly what the Community Land Trust, what we're trying to achieve there in making sure that folks can find market rate affordable housing in different parts of the city. So I think that's a referral from me as well tonight. So if you can tie that up in a nice bow and referring to whatever I had just mentioned. But I would be really interested to see if that's something of a policy suggestion, if that's an incentive that can be created, or if, but particularly at the Community Land Trust.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. First and foremost, I just want to thank all of the folks who've come out and voiced their thoughts and opinions on this particular item tonight. I understand some of the feedback received from the community members related to cumulative impact as it relates to air pollution and even carbon emissions, and I appreciate that. I will point out, as I think about this, and as we, sit in a valley and in a region that is not controlled by solely the city of Bakersfield, that there are other local government entities that also make decisions that contribute to that cumulative impact. And so I think that it's important for us, if we're going to talk about cumulative impact, we have to recognize that there are lots of different jurisdictions that contribute to that. And there are lots of questions that come into play as if with regard to land use, and if we want to curb development, what happens then in other jurisdictions. And so that was my first thought. The second thought was, for years, my response and my work on the council has really been in an effort to promote density and infill development in the urban core. And a lot of my colleagues have also led a lot of this work to get to that issue related to cumulative impact. We know that Bakersfield continues to grow. That is a reality, 1% to 2% a year. More and more people continue to enter into our region, and there are larger forces at play statewide that contribute to that growth. I think it's a positive thing in a lot of different ways. At the same time, we have a lot of local families, and I have a lot of constituents, a number of constituents who are perpetual renters and have been for years, and who are very frustrated, particularly in the last 5-6 years, with their inability to actually own a home. And yes, we need subsidized affordable housing. Yes, we need market rate affordable housing, but we also need just additional housing units, period, like throughout the whole market, like every type of product. We need more additional units. And so I'm in support of the motion tonight because of that pressure that I know we all feel in the need to provide additional housing inventory for our community and for our families. And I don't want to limit our housing stock and put some of these concerns on the backs of all these families who are really struggling and hoping to own a piece of their American dream, their California dream, and home ownership in the future. And so I concur with the motion tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Gonzalez. Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep my comments brief, but just share similar sentiments as my colleagues' appreciation for folks who came out in opposition of the project. I'll share that a lot of the commentary around the challenges with our local air quality resonate strongly with me. I'll share vulnerably that it was one of the main reasons why, as a young kid, constantly told my mother that I was never going to come back to the city of Bakersfield after leaving for college. And of course, coming back for family ultimately is what brought me back. And one of the commitments I made personally was that as I ventured into the realm of politics, was that I would do what I could to make sure that we are cleaning up our air quality here in the Valley. I think the comment that Councilmember Gonzalez made regarding the fact that our geography makes it particularly challenging for us to address it as a singular municipality is a real one, although that doesn't mean that we shouldn't also be doing our part. So I think that there's ways to do that, but I think ultimately it's my understanding that it's not the responsibility of a single developer on a single development to deal with those larger cumulative challenges that face us as a community. The other piece to all of this is that there was a comment about species potentially being on this particular lot, and I just wanted to make sure and ask our Madam City Attorney, if in fact that is found to be the case, there are still pathways and avenues to address those concerns.
Councilmember Arias, yes, as I mentioned before, before the city issues any building permits, we will require that the applicant provide species reports that first have to be vetted by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and then they submit to us and we confirm and we then issue the building permit.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. And again, appreciate the comments and look forward to, I believe the general plan is coming back here within a few weeks, potentially. So I think that the points, many of the points that were made tonight, would be great feedback for us to hear through that process. But it sounds like I got the timeline incorrect. So I'd love to give.
Just really
Mr.
quickly.
Clegg.
Yeah, just really quickly, Councilmember. We do have aspects leading up to general plan adoption. We actually have the housing element, which is, again, our language has been approved by the state. We need to bring that back to your council for approval. And then we'll be having workshops around the general plan update through fall and spring, but it won't be done in the fall. Just that's the one piece we wanted to clarify. But we'll have multiple steps in the next couple of quarters that we're in the thick of the general plan. Yes, I mean, it's been coming and coming, and you're right. We're in the thick of where it all comes together in the next couple quarters.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias. You have a motion to support staff's recommendation. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved with council members Weir and Bashirchash absent.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Council and mayor statements.
At this point, I don't see anyone requesting. Councilmember Arias, is that you pressing? Councilmember Arias.
Thank you. Attempting to. Really quick, Mayor, I just wanted to shed light on the fact that a local nonprofit organization called the, Time for Change, led by my good friend Jovan, has been doing some good work to spruce up and take care of MLK Park, which now sits in Ward 2, and has alerted me that through their regular cleanups, continue to identify needles in the park, and that is of great concern to me. I'm sure, unfortunately, that that's not the only park that is the case, and would love for us to invite him to the Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods Committee to share the work that they've done, share some of the challenges that they're seeing, and potentially have a conversation about the creation of some signage to educate particularly our youth on what to do when in fact they come into contact with some of these dangerous objects. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple items. Number one, we've been doing a lot of work on our traffic calming, and we've had a lot of requests from the community since we have instituted it. And so I would like to make a referral to have staff bring us back to the full council, kind of a multimodal update where we're at on that. And then the other thing is I went to the Board of Supervisors yesterday to ask for help with our continuing problem with not enough jail beds. And for multiple years now, we've tried to work with the sheriff and get more jail beds and tried different avenues. And at this point, nothing has seemed to work, but it continues to be a big frustration for our community. We have hired 120 more police are on the street. We have code enforcement. We have park rangers. We have BLNC for homeless. We have done many, many things, and the community is still frustrated, and a system doesn't work unless all the systems are working together, and without the jail beds, we can't really, we're not getting the use of all the other things that we're doing. So I think we really need to focus on the jail bed issue, and so I would make a referral that we create a task force from the community, and it's the city, and it's the DA's office, and the sheriff's obviously got to be involved, but I think also we need the chambers, the business people involved. They're the ones really suffering, the continual breaking the windows, the vandalism, the robberies. So hopefully we can just really focus on this and get the whole community behind it and find an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. So last night I performed a routine night drive through parts of my ward to check on the conditions of some of our neighborhoods. You know, fall is coming, and so it's getting darker earlier. And I'm concerned about some of the neighborhoods in East Bakersfield, particularly on East Truxton and Niles and Monterey, where there are some street lights that have been perpetually out. And I'm talking about, you know, I think I've made requests now for the last couple of years. Particularly, there was a street light pole that was hit by a vehicle and was never replaced several years ago. And so I'm going to make a referral tonight that staff make a run through East Bakersfield and the Niles Monterey corridor to identify those street lights and make sure that they're functioning properly, particularly as we get into the winter months. We have a higher concentration of folks who are pedestrians, who are bicyclists, and we want to make sure that our neighborhoods are safe for all users of the roadway. And secondly, I received a visit from a constituent in Westchester with concerns related to some of our short-term vacation rentals. We had brought this topic up a few years ago, and I'd like us to, again, consider an ordinance related to short-term vacation rentals and perhaps, you know, definitively now establish an ordinance that regulates these things, that allows us to respond to those that are not registered or are in compliance with those regulations that we set forth. And so I'm making that referral tonight. I know that it was sent to a committee. Mr. Clegg, if you can help me, help us understand where it sits currently.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. I was going to clarify because our committee names have changed slightly since then.
Yeah.
And just to confirm, I think, you know, council direction on which committee it was at our Planning and Development Committee prior. You know, now our Housing and Community Development Committee. I think that probably still makes the most sense. If that there's consensus around that, I think we would still bring it back to the committee that principally still has this similar scope.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. My comment's going to be brief. I just wanted to thank Councilmember Smith for advocating on behalf of the people of Bakersfield, going to the county board of supervisors and asking them to help out with the jail bed space. So I appreciate the extra effort on our behalf. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Coleman. On September 11th, courage, sacrifice, and selflessness triumphed over terror. Tomorrow, we're approaching the 24th anniversary. We remember the courage of firefighters, law enforcement, countless civilians who gave up their lives. We remember the sacrifice of Betty Ong, the flight attendant, first person to warn authorities. Our hearts go out to all the loved ones, and we remember the children of the parents who didn't come home. It's with great gratitude that we remember the selfless men and women who put the well-being of others before themselves. So may we as a city grow in our support and gratitude for all of those who continually fight for freedom and uphold the foundational truths on which our country was built. And may we have a moment of silence just in remembrance. Thank you. And with that, we stand adjourned at 7:36.